Hi there, my name is AllMattJazz, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how one idea can get slightly out of hand. That might be an understatement. Now, ideas don't usually come from you telling yourself to come up with an idea. Most ideas, or at least in my experience of sparks of creativity and inspiration, come from you when you're about to fall asleep or when you're in the shower. The point is, these shower thoughts usually come and go, and not many people do anything about them other than just let them go. But what would happen if you didn't let them go? What happens if you took that one idea and see how far you could take it? Recently I was doodling in this little sketchbook I have, and then the moment happened. This wide-eyed ghost-looking doodle. Now usually I would just move on to the next doodle or some other idea that popped into my head. However, I decided to draw another, and then another, and then before I knew it I had filled a whole page with these little ghosts. By the end of the page I realised I was onto something. A blank slate or a form that I could apply whatever character elements I wanted to and create a character each time, creating multiple iterations of the same thing. So I have the idea, a ghost, but how far can I take it? I started with A5 pieces of paper and decided to draw a small series of these ghosts to test the water. Now, to make sure all these were the right size and shape, I used a template with one of the pieces. This made sure I didn't draw the same thing every time and each ghost would be a different size and shape. Now, this technique turned out to be a massive help in the end. Now, after each piece of paper had the template drawn on top of it, it was time to get creative and add the character elements to each ghost. And then when each one was drawn in pencil, I used black acrylic paint to outline each one. This was the longest part of the process of this entire thing because I was doing it with a very thin paintbrush to make sure the lines were consistent. I learned from this mistake later on as well, but I wish I kind of knew it before so I didn't spend hours trying to paint the outlines in. So after the black outlines were down, I thought I'd add a bit more colour to make it pop so it wasn't too white. For this I used watercolours. This is just a cheap set you can just buy anywhere. I got this sometime, I have no idea. It's an artist thing that everyone seems to accumulate art supplies and no one knows where they got them from. But the slight hint of colour just made the character pop off the white background. Now, after a whole night of drawing and painting, I actually had a whole series of these. The wide-eyed original, a Santa, a dwarf, a geek, a coffee lover, a male-looking dude, a moviegoer, a cold ghost wrapped in a hat and scarf, a pirate, and one wearing whatever the hell one of those propeller hats is called. Pretty sure it's called a propeller hat. So that was it. 10 drawings done of the ghost, right? Now, it's all well and good making these, but I felt like I could do more and take the same concepts of these paintings and just make them bigger. That's when I ran to the art shop and bought 10 canvases ranging from small to large and got to work creating more of these ghosts to make another batch of artwork. So learning from what I did with the paper pieces, I ended up making a bigger version of the template to make sure all the ghosts were the exact same size. And the same technique as the ones with the paper ones, making the character elements on top of these blank slates. And after a bit of sketching and doodling, I ended up with my final 10 of these canvases. These range from a sleepy ghost, a messy ghost, one holding a flower, a boxer boy, one crying, a bookworm, a punk, a ghost zombie, however that works. One with a fake arrow through his head, although he's already dead, so I don't know how that works. And me. I'm serious, I just drew me, coming up with this idea. Now, because these were canvases, I couldn't use watercolours on these, so instead I used acrylic paints, specifically Games Workshop paints. Oddly, these work really well on canvases, and I'm surprised no one's mentioned this before. A lot of people have these paints, and a lot are readily available around if you have a Games Workshop around you. These paints are small, easy to carry, and come in a bunch of different colours. Because they're used for models, they have a higher pigment than what you'd normally find in cheap acrylic paints, so they tend to cover most things. These are ideal for what I'm doing at this point. I put the colour down first because the black outlines are going to cover the edges and make sure it has a clean edge around each one. And speaking of outlines, it's time to outline these. Now, this time I didn't paint the outlines with a small brush because that took forever. Instead, I used paint markers. These are Posca pens, you can get them either online or in most art supply shops, and they come in a bunch of different widths and colours. But using these, I was able to lay down quick outlines but also making them consistent throughout each piece. Even though these pieces are larger than the pieces of paper, it took half the amount of time to actually put the outlines in. Something to keep in mind for future reference if I ever do more. But at least now I have the art supplies to make more pieces in future with this style. Now, I could have left them like this, plain at the back like the paper pieces. But I wanted to add a bit more texture to these pieces, make them stand out more than just the paper ones. So with that, it was time to get messy. Using sticky bot plastic, or this sticky clear wrap stuff I managed to find, it's usually used to cover books with, I believe. I placed it on top, and using that as a guide, traced around a vague shape of the ghost I had painted, using that as a guide to create a white border around the edge of each one. Each one was cut with a pair of scissors, and after that it was stuck on, making sure it was stuck on properly to give a clean edge when we get to the next step. And the next step is spray painting. Now, I've learned from previous experience that spray paint can get absolutely everywhere, on furniture, floors, clothes, windows, doors. But to avoid this, I actually used some Christmas wrapping paper, which is a good use of some spare wrapping paper if you have any laying around, to make sure to protect your floor and furniture. Now I'm using spray paint to throw splats and background colour onto these. However, I didn't buy yellow in my process of buying art supplies, so this was painted on first using a normal paintbrush, but with the different colours that I had, which was red, orange, a light blue and a dark blue, I was able to get different variations of these colours, and playing around with the textures with splats and showing different parts of the colours intertwining with each other around the canvas. Now, just because I had it lying around, I had this white marker from something previously, so I splat some white on it as well to give it a bit more difference of colour as well. And then you just leave it out to dry, make sure you're in a well ventilated area. Luckily I've got windows that I can open quite wide, so it was easy enough to make this a proper ventilated area. And then once it was dry, it was time to peel it off and show off the final result of 10 unique canvas artworks. And that's it, 20 pieces, right? Easy enough? Wrong. This is where the idea starts getting a little bit out of hand, because I ended up scanning in some of the character designs I had, drawing around them in Clip Studio Paint, and then I had a proper vectorized version that I could put on virtually anywhere. I had greater control of these ghosts, and I could add shading to them and colours that were vibrant, and I could change these at any time. I created 5 of the characters I'd made before, and then the descent of me buying whatever I saw became a thing. Because Google and the internet are a glorious thing, I bought all this with my designs in them. A white t-shirt, a black t-shirt, a mouse mat, a mug to show how much I like coffee even though I don't like the stuff, and stickers to put on anything, even co-workers. The point is, by the end of it, without even knowing, I'd created a whole line of designs and products, all of which I could go on and sell or add to my portfolio. 10 drawings, 10 canvases, and a whole line of spirited merch to go alongside it, all stemming from one little doodle. Now you can call this obsession or creative outburst or things getting out of hand in the space of 2 weeks, but after all that I understood one thing. That little doodle created a whole host of this creative work I had here. That one little doodle that you do in your sketchbook and you kind of dismiss and go on to the next thing, that one little idea could be an explosion of what you could do next. Never underestimate that small idea you had, because it could lead to something bigger. Now I could have gone further, I could have done more clothing stuff, I could have even started a website and started selling things, but the fact that this was just 2 weeks work, I could easily carry on as I wanted to. The whole point of this video is what I'm saying is never underestimate your ideas. Never think it's just a throwaway thing. If someone thinks it's a bad idea, then maybe you think it's a good one. Very much like this video. My name has been All Matt Jazz, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.